Glory Story.
A Jewish girl in Shanghai. Modern-day Shanghai, an old lady with blue eyes arrived in the city, while holding an old locket that belongs to her. Rina and Mishorli, European Jews luckily escaped before they were caught by Nazis on their homeland, sought refuge within Shanghai ghetto. Jen, a Chinese boy who sells bread for a living. Rina gave her locket in exchange of food. Jen tries to find Rina to return her locket. She was welcomed upon by Jen to his home, as he was raised by his father's friend, who was once alongside his father, fought the Japanese, in which Jen's father died. Together, they make their lives upon Shanghai normal, until a collaborator blows their locations to the local Japanese army. Jen's guardian held and allowed himself to be caught by the soldiers. 1945, the Japanese surrendered. Jen sees his friend Rina one last time as she was taken to the ship back to Europe. Rina is the old woman from the beginning, trying to search for Jen, who came as an old man. Air in summer. There are important locations featured in Air that are based on places in the city Kami in Hyōgo Prefecture, Japan. 5 areas set in the Kasumi district of Kami. During the course of the series' creation, Kasumi was an individual town that has since merged with 2 others to form the city of Kami. Many of the locales in Air, such as the seawall, the train station, the shrine, and the school are based on real places. 5. 6. As Air is set in the middle of summer, the season offers bright, sunny skies for the town during the day. 7. In the manga adaptation, the town is described as a quiet town with few people, with nothing but beaches and countryside. 8. Scenario assistant Yuichi Suzumoto has commented that his impression of Air is similar to that of a folk song due to the rural setting and heartwarming story progression. 9. As indicated by the title, Air, skies and wings are important themes. Yukito is searching for the girl in the sky. 5. And Misazu believes that her other self is flying in the sky above her. Other characters show a similar relationship to the sky, such as Minagi, who is a member of the astronomy club. 10. And Mikiru, who has a fondness for bubbles that float in the air. Kano wants wings to fly, and Kana already has them. Misazu names a crow she finds Sora, Japanese for sky. Another major theme is the maternal bond, as the 4 heroine stories, as well as Yukito's, revolve around their mothers, either biological or adoptive. Main scenario writer Jun Mida commented that he prefers to include mothers in games if given the choice between only including a mother or a father, as is what happened with Air, though he backs this up by noting that in Bishoujo games, women are the main focus anyway. 9. Complicated relationships involving family members and friends play a key part throughout the story. 9. One of the sub-themes in the story is magic. 11. Uraha, Yukito's mother, 12, and Yukito himself, 13, have the ability to use magic, though Yukito is the least skilled among them. Kano was told by her sister that when she grows up and takes off her yellow ribbon, she will gain the power to do magic. However, the problems of parents leaving their offspring and poverty are displayed realistically. Alexander is son of Philip II, king of Macedonia and Olympias, a snake witch. Desiring to attain speed, Alexander heads to the woods with allies Philotas and Hephaestion, where he tames a wild man-eating horse. There he meets and befriends Clytus and Ptolemy I Soter, recruiting them to join his cavalry. Macedonia heads to war with Athens, led by King Philip and his top advisors, Attalus, Parmenion, father of Philotas, and Antipater. Philip becomes concerned with Alexander's absence, but Alexander and his cavalry arrive at the last moment, exploiting a break in the Athenian lines and leading Macedonia to victory. After their defeat, Athens' ambassadors head to Persia, where they hope to align with new King Darius III of Persia. Alexander and his friends however sneak in as Athens slaves then kill the guards, causing Persia to think that Athens is betraying him. While Ptolemy is caught and suspended in the air, Alexander is able to save him from execution at the last minute by releasing all the horses in the city from the stables. While in Persia, Alexander also meets a woman named Roxanne. Attalus tricks Philip into thinking that Olympias and Alexander are trying to betray him. Philip banishes Olympias and marries Attalus's daughter Eurydice, who gives birth to a son that Philip desires to become king instead of Alexander. Philip holds a great ceremony to present his new prince to the masses and also constructs a huge golden statue of himself, declaring himself a god. During the ceremony however the statue crumbles and a guard hypnotized by Olympias assassinates Philip. Philip's death, Alexander ascends to king and Attalus is executed. Athens plots to fight back against Macedonia, doubting Alexander's strength, but relents once Macedonia defeats Thebes in battle. Alexander places severe demands on Athens but relents on most of them after meeting with the philosopher Diogenes of Sinope. Alexander next plots an attack on Persia and starts leading his troops there. Around this time Parmenion reveals to Philotas a secret about Alexander, that prior to his birth Olympias proclaimed that he would destroy the world. In addition, Aristotle sends his niece, Cassandra, to join Alexander's cavalry. Macedonia's forces continue to head through Persia's territories with multiple victories. Along the way Alexander recruits the doctor Philippus to join him after undoing Gordian's knot, which has been said can only be undone by the king. In their next battle with Persia, Macedonia's troops are hopelessly outnumbered by Persia's, which are 10 times that of Macedonia's, but Darius tells his forces to retreat when members of the Pythagorean cult intervene. During the battle Philotas falls off his horse and has a vision of Olympias summoning demons. While in Egypt Alexander meets Dinocrates, a member of his army who tells him of the great city he'd prefer to create there, Alexandria. Alexander has a vision of himself being in Alexandria 100 years after his death, where he visits the place where he was entombed by Ptolemy. Before leaving Egypt, Alexander and his men visit the temple of Ammon, where they are told that Alexander will be killed by the one he trusts the most. Ptolemy witnesses a separate prophecy, that he will become great king of the world. Plotting with Persia, Pythagorean cult members make another attempt on Alexander's life, but he is able to fight him off. Darius leads Persia's armies against Macedonia's. Aristotle meanwhile meets with Diogenes, requesting the Platohedron, the device which contains the knowledge of the entire world. Diogenes claims however that he tossed it aside. The two watch as the battle continues. The Macedonian army gains new strength when there is an eclipse of the moon, and the Platohedron appears and ascends to the heavens. As the battle nears its conclusion, Alexander kills Darius, defeating the Persians once and for all. Amatsuki. Tokidoki is a Japanese high school student who, when he fails his history class, is sent to a high-tech history museum that virtually recreates the Edo period to do makeup work. However, what was supposed to be a simple school project becomes much more complicated when he's attacked by two supernatural beings known as the Nui and the Yakou, and loses the vision in his left eye. After he's saved from the Nui by a girl named Kuchia, he realizes that he's no longer wearing the simulation goggles, and is trapped in the virtual Edo. Meanwhile, in the real world, Sensei Corporation, the virtual reality company who made the virtual museum Tokidoki, is seen throughout the story. Aoi Bonaku series. The series consists of adaptations of 6 modern classics of Japanese literature: Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human, Ninjin Shikaku, and Run, Melos. Pasha, Melos, Natsume Soseki's Kokoro, Ryunosuke Akutagawa's Hell Screen, Jigoku Hen, and the Spider's Thread Kumo no Ito, and Anga Sakaguchi's In the Forest, Under Cherries in Full Bloom, Sakura no Mori no Mankai no Shita. No longer human, Ninjin Shikaku, a high school student, becomes lost and alienated. Despondent and aimless, he falls into a cycle of self-abuse, depression and drugs that taints his life for years. Told in 3 chapters, each chapter deals with a different point in his life, and the final chapter leaves him standing alone, an empty and hollow caricature of his former self. In the forest, Under Cherries in Full Bloom, Sakura no Mori no Mankai no Shita, a love story between a 12th century woman and a mountain bandit who abducts her. Kokoro, a 1914 tale of a young man's life journey during the Meiji era. The work deals with the transition from the Japanese Meiji society to the modern era, by exploring the friendship between a young man and an older man he calls sensei. It continues the theme of isolation developed in Soseki's previous works, here in the context of interwoven strands of egoism and guilt, as opposed to shame. Run, Melos. Hasha, Melos, an updated retelling of a classic Greek tale of the story of Damon and Pythias. The most prominent theme of Run, Melos is unwavering friendship. Despite facing hardships, the protagonist Melos does his best to save his friend's life, and in the end his efforts are rewarded.